Aretha Franklin is in the room. Let's give it up for her. Some respect. Yes. Welcome, everybody. We're going to get set for a star-studded, jam-packed day. So if you haven't put your name in your image, please rename yourself. If you need some help, just text or reach out to our tech people, Mercedes, Annie, or Ashley, and they'll help rename you. Welcome, welcome, welcome again to our day 3 of Symposium 2021. This is our 8th year, and a pandemic was not going to stop us from making sure that we delivered this extraordinary program. So we've done a hybrid symposium for the first time in our history. We've been in person, and we spent 2 days together Zooming. Thanks to DJ SolJah. Let's open our mics and shout out to him and say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your music was rocking, and my son was so embarrassed watching me dance. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Fabulous. So today we're going to have a panel discussion starting from 10 through 11. Moderated by Terrell Dortch, who is a co-director of Boys to Men, a fabulous and successful program run out of Moses Youth Center. He'll be introducing our extraordinary panelists. You'll have the opportunity to have a breakout session with the panelists that you choose, and then we'll take a break. DJ SolJah is coming right back. He's gonna, vibe with him for another 15 minutes from 11 to 11:15.
I'll say one very quick
and
thing.
then we go into at 11:15. We'll have a keynote presentation by Professor Cesar McDowell, moderated by our own Kari Milner, and you'll have the opportunity to go out into an action-packed, action-focused breakout group at the end. So we hope that you'll stay with us the entire day. Please note that because this is such an extraordinary day for us, we are recording, and we'll be recording both the panel and the keynote presentation and conversation so that we will have the opportunity to share it in the future. So I don't want to take up much more time, but there's one slide that I'd like to share with you as a reminder of the ways of being that AFCOS has established for how we come together in community. And you'll see those ways of being on your slide: practicing empathy, being courageous and curious in our dialogues, make space, take space, assume best intentions and attend to impact, take the lessons, leave the details. We take care of ourselves and community, which means take the breaks that you need. Jump up, eat, whatever you need to take care of yourself and to support the community. And please be present for these extraordinary dialogues, conversations that are going to happen today. So I'm going to turn it over to our panel moderator, Terrell Dortch. Terrell, are you in the room? And thank you, DJ SolJah.
Yes. Thank you, Barbara. Welcome. And I want to just start off with showing gratitude for making yourself available for day 3 of the OST Symposium. So thank you. I'm Tyrell Dortch. I'm the director and co-founder, along with the great Miss Cole. Where's Miss Cole? Can we give love to Miss Cole? Nicole Rodriguez, please give Miss Cole some love. Thank you. I'm co-founder of the Boys to Men program, which is a leadership empowerment program that serves young kings of color, mostly 14 to 19. And we focus on health, wellness, self-care, career exploration, financial empowerment. But really what we thrive in is creating a space where young kings can be seen, heard, loved, acknowledged, and supported. So I'm thankful and very grateful that today I'm not showing up like that. I'm showing up as a moderator. I'm showing up as a catalyst for a conversation. I'm humble, I'm thankful and grateful to have the opportunity to be a part of a panel that consists of some amazing out of school time professionals who are doing some great creative, innovative work as far as uplifting the Black and brown youth, families, leaders, and families, leaders of our community. So in the next hour, what we'll be able to do is hear from the individuals, learn more about their journey. We'll be able to talk about how they define youth and community development. We'll also hear about their creative and innovative programming that really is focusing on prioritizing racial equity, which I think is super important, especially in the times that we're living in. You hear the word equity getting thrown a lot, but to be able to have a space where we can amplify some of the great work being done by these individuals and movements in Cambridge to prioritize racial equity is something that I'm super proud to be a part of. All right, so what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna get ourselves grounded. And this is super important, especially before we start engaging in dialogues around the topics that we'll be tapping into. All right, so what I'm actually gonna invite the community to please participate with me in is a self-care practice that I created about last March. During the pandemic, everything was crazy. We're on virtual, we're transitioning between meetings. I'm trying to figure out how do I get myself grounded and settled before I jump into the next meeting. So in the midst of that, I was able to come up with a self-care practice called Vibo. And basically what we're gonna do for the next 2 minutes, you have the power of choice, which is important. Sometimes we don't have power of choice. So you have the power of choice. You can turn your cameras off, right? DJ Bruce or DJ, what you want me to call you, King? Either one? That guy, the great DJ, the great DJ, DJ Bruce, right? DJ Bruce is gonna play us a instrumental, right? And I encourage you in the next 2 minutes while this instrumental is playing, take care of yourself. You need to go get some water, go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do. But in that 2 minutes, I want you to think about who is somebody and or an organization that you want to acknowledge for their commitment to empowering young people. All right, in the city in Cambridge, who's somebody or an organization that you want to acknowledge for their commitment to empowering young people. And we can even be more specific. We can talk about young people, specifically Black and brown young people. Let's be specific. All right, so we're gonna turn our cameras off. When you take the 2 minutes, when we come back, we're gonna flood the chat. We're gonna flood the chat with appreciation. We're gonna flood the chat with love. And that's how we're gonna start our hour together. All right. DJ Bruce, appreciate you. Please take care of yourself. We'll come back in about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. If I can reach the star, pull one down for me, shining on the heart, so you could see the truth. And this love I have inside is everything it seems. But for now, I find it's only in my dreams that I can change the world. I'll be the sunlight of your universe. You would think my life was really something good. Maybe if I could change the world. If I could be king, even for the day, I'd take you as my queen. I'd have it no other way. And love All right. We can start making our way back. Please. Thank you, DJ Bruce. Appreciate you. Let's see these chats. What's these chats looking like? Let's see these chats. Please, please, let's flood these chats. Let's acknowledge and show some appreciation to the individuals and organizations doing great work for our Black and brown young people. Yes, yes, CCC, I see you. Youth workers, Melinda, I see you. Solomon, Des, Yvette, Melinda, yes, yes, yes. Keep flooding, we got a lot of people here. We got a lot of people here, come on. All of us, yes, yes, Nalita, I believe, yes, Trev, Kwam, Raga Fuller, yes, Boys to Men, Donna and Michael, yes, thank you, keep flooding, please. Thank you. This is important. This is important for us to start from a place of appreciation and acknowledgement, right? So many times we might see negative things in the newspapers, or something might happen even in our city. You know, it spreads fast, but there's less spaces where we're actually able to celebrate, you know, the excellence, you know, and acknowledge that people are making an impact in the city. So I'm thankful for this panel today. We're going to tap in. We're going to talk about some of the disconnections between the two sides of Cambridge, because there is two sides of Cambridge. It might be three right now. It might be three right now, but there's at least two sides of Cambridge. And we're going to talk about some of that disconnection. We're going to talk about how these individuals and their movements are prioritizing racial equity while centering the work around the interests and needs of the Black and brown youth and families in our community. So without further ado, because we're here for the panelists. All right. What we're going to do is, and I want to acknowledge, we only have about 50 minutes. So this panel is probably going to be about 30, 35 minutes. Our panelists already kind of know the time they have for each question, but what we're going to do is we're going to start with Queen Ashley, and we're going to just have her share her name and the organization, briefly talk about your organization and the movement that you represent, and then please tell us what inspires you to do the work that you are currently doing. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. Ashley, she, her, hers, Blackyard, nestled over in North Cambridge. Blackyard has many arms. I was just telling someone yesterday that when I visualize what Blackyard is, it's like an octopus, and it has all these tentacles that go out into the community doing different things. Started off as an art space where people could focus on self-transformation. I believe in self-transformation. I was not the person that I am right now. I used to not be this person. I was very anti-Black, very ageist, anti-youth, even when I thought I was doing my best. And I had to face myself. Working in school buildings, particularly in Dorchester, what I was co-signing to. And so out of that came Blackyard Arts, where I would invite folks in to work on self-transformation. The youth work is really in response to creating a space where young people are leading and allowed to be in their fullest humanity. I believe children are equal to who we are as human beings. And they know that I believe that, which is why I believe Blackyard is excelling, because young folks they know I believe in who they are. And we have very, very direct, clear conversations. So self-transformation is big. Family is big. I believe that when people have what they need, they thrive and they do well. And so while I am centering youth, I like to extend and think about family. Are folks doing well with housing? Are they food secure? Are they in their joy and their best selves? And so centering young Black folks and expanding out from there to ensure their families are well too. The other thing that I do in my own transformation and when I center work is centering as a queer Black woman, centering queer Black youth, LGBTQ, so Black trans youth, and going out from there. If we are centering and thinking about who are we losing deeply in our communities? That is Black trans women at a extremely high, unbelievable rate. And so from there, if we're thinking about children growing and having what they need, we have to think, are these children going to have joyful, long lives? And what we're seeing are Black trans women being murdered very early in life. And so what are we doing to uplift and hold Black queer youth in the center and giving them opportunities to feel full and joyful and whole? And so Blackyard is appreciative of how we have been loved and welcomed into the community, and also looking to push when we need to push as Black folks against what is not happening in Cambridge. And like you said, there are 2 and 3 and 4 faces of Cambridge, which I look to shift alongside other folks in our community, because the kind of fake liberalism around centering Black folks in Cambridge really, and I know there's a long legacy of people doing this work. I am not the first person to address it. I want to be clear. And so I just look, I am fortunate to be fighting alongside young people and other Black organizers and organizations. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Can we show some love to Ashley, please? Can we show some love to Ashley? Thank you. Blackyard, thank you for doing some amazing work in the city. But Ashley, I want to, because you dropped a lot of jewels. And, you know, one of the things that I heard was this, this self-transformation within your, you know, within yourself, and then it starts extending, right? Can you talk a little bit about how important it is to create a safe and supportive space for empowering our young people, right? And like, how do you use family engagement and youth voice to create that actual space?
That's a great question. I would say that it starts with a lot of radical honesty, a lot of radical love, and transparency. Like I said, I try to really live in my values and share that out verbally with young folks, and let them know that they are allowed to push back with me. So recently, an example of that is I have a group of young folks I'm working with on something, and they got contracts. And I said to them, it doesn't matter if I consider myself an abolitionist. You read that contract, you get someone else to read that contract, and you come back at me and you say to me if something is not right in that contract, that agreement between you and I, because you deserve to be treated fully in yourself, to have that practice now for later when they really have to push, but just really letting it all free and out and continuing to work on myself. I haven't hit some like glorious woke spot. I still get stuff wrong. I try to listen and build relationships. So when I moved to Cambridge and I'm still building relationships, I don't know everyone, I don't know everything. And so I try to be authentic and honest about that. I try to show up to meetings. I try to listen to people. And so I think when you can do that, community listens to you and young people listen to you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Please, let's show love to Ashley one more time, please. Thank you, Ashley. Wow. Thank you, Ashley. You got me really reflecting about my own, you know, personal journey. And one of the things you just said, right, is this, like, you're still growing, right? You're still growing. A lot of times, you know, sometimes as adults, we feel as if, you know, we might have hit our ceiling, or one of the things that we sometimes do is we realize that we need to recognize we can learn from our young people just like we can teach them. Right? So like with Boys to Men, like we just finished up our spring internship, and I told the young kings, this was a mutual feeling as far as this transformational journey. Right? So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing with Blackyard. Much love. All right, so next we are gonna invite Michael and Donna, who are doing some amazing work. And I can talk about their work, but I think it's more powerful when they talk about the work. So please, let's show some love to Michael and Donna as they come into the space, please. All right, so Same format. Please, Michael and Donna, can you just, share, your organization, briefly talk about, what you guys do, what's the work that you actually are putting in it, and what inspires you to do the work? What is the reason? What's that thing that actually inspires you to do the amazing work you're doing? So thank you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Terrell, for that introduction. My name is Michael Dawson. This is my wife, Donna Dawson. We founded Innovators for Purpose 7 years ago. For the first 2 years of our operation, we were based out of Fletcher Maynard Academy. So we are rooted in the community. So our mission is to build a more inclusive innovation economy. So Terrell was talking about those tales of two cities, right? So we have the Kendall Square community, which is the most innovative square mile on the planet. And then we have right outside of Kendall Square, our most economically challenged community in the city. So we are working to really integrate all of Cambridge into that innovation economy. So how do we achieve that? So we expose high potential, diverse young people to opportunities they never imagined before. I remember we were recruiting at one of the middle schools, and we asked the students, how many of you want to work for Microsoft, Google, and Novartis? No hands went up, right? So we get them inside of those doors. So our students have been inside of Google, Microsoft, Novartis, Biogen, Cambridge Innovation Economy. We open their eyes up to their future possibilities and what they could potentially be. And then we cultivate their identity as creative innovators who bring new ideas to life with an emphasis on making the world better for others. So some people think of us as a STEM or STEAM organization, but we like to think of ourselves as a combination of STEM, STEAM, youth empowerment, social action, and mentorship, all wrapped up in one. So what inspires us to do the work that we do? And without question, it is our young people. We pour everything we have into our young people. We set very high expectations for them. Some of them fall by the wayside after 3 or 4 weeks, but there's others that have been with us for 3, 4, and 5 years, and we're only a 7-year-old organization. And the best of all is that we are starting to see the fruits of our labor. So we have 3 seniors. All 3 have been accepted into 4-year colleges. 1 has a full scholarship, 1 has a partial scholarship. So once again, without a doubt, our young people inspire what we do.
Thank you so much, Michael and Donna. Can we show some love, please? This is some amazing work being done. Let's show some love for real. I don't know how I sound when I clap, because y'all be looking at me like, it probably sound crazy. Everybody's on mute doing this, and I'm like a happy auntie, right?
Sound good.
Okay, all right, cool. Thank you, Michael and Donna, for sharing. And I want to shout out, the fact that you're saying you started, 7 years ago, Fletcher Maynard, right? That's where we started at. That's why I went to school, Maynard School. Shout out to Mr. Dancy. I don't know anybody who went to Maynard School. Mr. Dancy was the principal, and he used to have the doghouse. You get in trouble, teachers be like, "Oh, you want to go to the doghouse?" And I don't even know if that was a proper term to use back then, but it got us to straighten up. So shout out to Mr. Dancy. But thank you for sharing just some of the work that you guys are doing, and you tapped into a couple of important topics, especially Kendall Square, but what's happening in Kendall Square right in front of our eyes. And sometimes our young people not even knowing, right, the amazing resources and the opportunities that is in their city, right? And the career exploration is so important, right? Tapping into your passion and skills. I want to ask you, because we've seen recently people kind of address social justice in different ways. And I know in our conversation, you guys talked about Innovators for Purpose, addressing social justice through STEAM. Can you talk a little bit more about what that actually looks like and what the programming you are doing with the young people?
Yeah, so as Michael mentioned, we introduce these students to the tools of the innovation economy. But what we really want is for them to use these tools to solve problems that really matter. So along with learning about innovation and all of that and what you need to succeed, we're really trying to make them the best citizens that they can be. And so last year when George Floyd was murdered, the students were terribly upset. They had never seen anything like this before. And so they were like scared to death, wondering, you know, what's going to happen? Am I going to be next? And so we said to them, well, we can remain afraid, or we can actually do something. And so they chose to do something. And so the augmented reality installation, This Should Not Be, was born. So it's currently on the lawn of the public library, the main branch. But anyway, This Should Not Be deals with systemic racism. And it brings awareness to the issues and how this is embedded in all of our systems. And they offer up a 5-step plan on how we might create an anti-racist America that we can all believe in. And so all of the content was student created. They did all of the research. They used AR, augmented reality, 2D design, 3D design, video, and so on and so forth. And so every aspect of the STEAM fields were addressed, and their curiosity and creativity brought about this marvelous, wonderful installation. And it also has fed into our next installation, which deals with the inequities in education.
Specifically in Cambridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 blocks.
Right.
Keep your eyes out for 2 blocks.
Yes, yes, please, let's show some love. Please show some love to what is being done. Innovators of Purpose. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We got to acknowledge the fact that you all are creating spaces to have these dialogues that are so important to our young people, right? Like when they come and they ask, like, am I next? There's a sense of trust, or there's a sense of they feel like you care about them, right? And that's why they're asking you these questions, and you create the space. And now not only are you creating a space and doing programming, you're doing programming using STEAM, which is so important also, right, to the development for our young. This world is changing. So for them to be able to be equipped with tools that is actually going to help them be successful in the future, but also address issues that is relevant right now and is always going to be relevant, is impressive. So I want to just say salute to the work you're doing. Thank you. We appreciate you. All right, so up next,
One second, Terrell.
Yes.
Hi, Terrell. May I say something? This is Tameen. Hi. My son is a part of Innovators for Purpose, and I want to say personally, thank you, Donna and Michael. It means a lot to me, and also to the agenda. Annie is the one who reached out to me about the program, so it does work. Firsthand witness. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes, thank you. We needed that right there, because sometimes we say we running effective programming, and we probably are, but when young people and parents can speak to it, it's a whole different level. It's a whole different level. So thank you to me. We needed that stamp. They already had the stamp, but it's like, let's give them that stamp. So thank you. All right. So next we are gonna tap in into a young man who's doing some amazing work. And once again, I could bring him into the space, but it's more powerful when he brings himself into the space. So with no further ado, we're gonna bring the King Solomon. That sounds dope. King Solomon. We're gonna bring King Solomon into the space, please. King Solomon, welcome. We are gonna do the same format. Please just kind of share your organization, briefly talk about the work that you do. And if you can tell the community what inspires you to do the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Tyrell. So my name is Solomon Montano. I'm the program director here at City Sprouts. And so many of you may know about City Sprouts, but we're a garden-based education nonprofit. So we're in public schools, specifically Cambridge and in Boston, and we simply have gardens at each school. And we have our garden educator staff who go into the schools, partner with the teachers, and bring the teachers out to the garden with their classes, so that way we can teach a science lesson based on the school curriculum. We also have a Young Leaders program, which is our out of school time program. That's a year-round club and a summer program. So we think that we do a lot in the community, do a lot to get kids in that green space, get them feeling connected to the nature and explore science specifically within nature in the city of Cambridge. And so I think City Sprouts is really about bringing science equity to our Black and Brown youth. Historically, they have not had these experiences. They have not had connections to the natural world around them simply because it's been taken away from them. So we're working really hard to bring those experiences back and to really make them think of themselves as stewards of natural and green spaces. It's important to have that identity. As we know, green spaces can make us feel less anxious, more calm, and be ready and present. And especially with all of these police shootings going on, all of this violence towards Black and Brown people, having that feeling of calm and relieving anxiety is really important. So something that inspires me is when I get these stories from my staff about how kids have gone through City Sprouts and said, oh, I'm a scientist now. I think of myself as a scientist. Or when parents, call City Sprouts and talk about how they went through our summer program and now all their son or daughter wants to do is have a garden or teach others how to cook food, or even just, study environmentalism in college. So I think these anecdotal stories that we get from families about the impact we have on our kids and how we've kind of changed their thinking about things is something that is really meaningful to me and inspires me to continue my work.
Thank you, Solomon. Let's show Solomon some love, please. Show Solomon some love for the work he's doing. Thank you, Solomon. Shout out to Solomon and City Sprouts. Solomon, I want to say from past experiences with Boys to Men, I think our year 2 we did urban farming, and young people, especially young kings of color, being able to be more educated on the importance of like nature, what's around you, right? How do you grow your own food? These things are super important and not talked about a lot in our community, especially when we talk about directing the message to our young people of color. So thank you for creating this space. But now young people are seeing themselves in a whole different light. Like, I want to be an environmental scientist, MIT's right down the street, right? What's the opportunities there, right? How do you tap into them? So thank you for creating that space. I want to ask a question because you said something that I know when you said it, I was like, I want to hear more about this, right? And this past year, around the nation, there's been attention on a lack of equity in some of the systems we're familiar with. So education, workforce, housing, whatever it may be. But we don't really talk about science. So can you kind of talk about what City Sprouts is doing to intentionally attack the efforts for science equity in Cambridge?
Yeah, totally. So just to start off, I feel like our young kids of color, haven't had that exposure to science that maybe white kids have. And that's why you see people who work at Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and those executive level positions, those engineers, they're mostly white men. So how can we as an organization bring science back to our youth of color, whether it's environmental science or just science in general, right? So City Sprouts over the past few years has been known as a growing organization, or one that, helps and connects kids to growing their own food and cooking. But we've recently tried to make this pivot that we're a science org. So we teach kids science. Within that, we teach them how to grow food. We teach them how to cook it. How to use it, because that would, we need to teach our youth how to use what they've made, what they've grown after their hard work. But we really want to teach them the foundations of science, how to think of something, how to look at something critically, how to observe, how to solve a problem, prototype, and then address that problem. So one of the ways we're doing this is we've created a curriculum called Early Start in Science, which is geared towards early learners, K through 5th grade. And it's rooted in the garden, but has connections to the school curriculum. So we're hitting on these core science concepts that the state and the district say are important, but we're doing it in a way that kids can actually understand, they can touch, they can feel, it's hands-on. We're asking open-ended questions, so we're not trying to get right or wrong answers. We're trying to get them to explain their thinking so they can talk about what they've learned. And so that's been really huge for us. And we've rolled it out this past year during the pandemic, which was another kind of milestone for us, because even during a challenging time, it was hugely successful. Our garden educators, all the credit goes to them in implementing this new curriculum and making sure that our kids are learning in ways that they never have been able to before. Another thing we did is that our Young Leaders program is our OST program. And like I said before, that's a club, a school year club, and our summer program. We really, over the winter, took a critical look at our Young Leaders program and thought about what it was doing well and what it wasn't. So we came up with a set of goals. And out of that goals, one of those goals was to prioritize youth of color, youth who have been historically marginalized, and youth who are economically disadvantaged for our programs. So we revamped our recruitment process. We talked to leaders in the community. Annie, thank you for being so helpful in this. We talked to folks like Breakthrough Greater Boston to learn more about how they recruit. We redid our application to make it more inclusive, to make sure that we are finding the youth who we want to be in our program, those youth of color. And how we recruited, like I said, changed drastically. So we decided to send our application to all of the public housing in Cambridge, because we knew for a fact that those kids weren't getting the experiences that their white peers were getting. And so then we told the community that we're making this change. We saw there was a need, and now as this community org, we are working towards bringing these kids into our program. And Dee, you're right. We try to make that all of our gardens are wheelchair accessible. We do not exclude based on ability or lack thereof. And so I think one of the biggest things that we did was take a hard look at how we interact with families. And so during the application process, we've now made it that we need to talk to all of our families who go into our program. One, so we can be better seen in the community, but also so our program is more of a partnership between families and City Sprouts. We believe that if families are involved, our kids are going to be more successful, and our educators are more rooted in the community. So that was another huge shift for us in trying to center youth of color in our program. And lastly, I think for a lot of our youth, they've experienced a punitive behavior management system where I act out, doesn't matter why I did it, but you're suspended or you're kicked out. You lose breakfast, you lose your lunchtime, you lose recess. And we did away with that. It's not how you should treat kids. They're learning, they're making mistakes. You need to hear why they're doing these mistakes and get to the root cause. So we adapted principles from restorative justice, which was created by Indigenous people in the United States and all over the world. And we changed how we interact with kids in terms of their behavior. It's really about bringing kids into the community. They did something wrong. How can we repair that harm? How can we bring the person that they harmed into a conversation with the one that did the harm to talk about why it happened, to get at the root cause and let them know that they're both in the community. And so we've kind of coined this term as positive youth support, because we're not managing their behavior, we're helping them make positive choices and helping them to make positive decisions in their life. So it's kind of like this whole, all these different things, this united approach that we're trying to bring science equity back. We're trying to be more respectful to our youth of color and include them in our community and show them that they can be scientists too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Solomon. Thank you, Solomon. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. Wow, I want to just acknowledge and commend the work that City Sprouts and yourself is doing. You have numerous efforts to attack this science equity. It's not just one approach, right? There's numerous things that you recognize that as an organization you had to do to make sure that you was uplifting and bringing the best resources to the young people. And I want to also appreciate the fact that it seems like there's not a sense of being complacent and content, like, hey, we're doing this. And nah, it's like, no, we can do better. And that's important, right? We live in a time where things are changing all the time. Things is evolving all the time. Young people are growing all the time. And if we're saying complacent, like, oh, work 2 years ago was cool now, and we laid back, we're going to see the effects of that. So I appreciate being proactive and not reactive. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So next, last but not least, we have Queen Cheyenne, who is going to come into the space and bless us. Same thing, Queen Cheyenne, can you please just share a little bit about your organization and movement you represent, and what inspires you to do the work that you are currently doing?
Thank you, Tyrell. I'm so happy to be here with folks. My name is Queen Cheyenne. I use they, she pronouns. I'm gonna be very honest. I'm just gonna like talk very colloquially because we're in community all together. So I'm like trying to just be in this space with so many folks that I know here and so many folks that I also am, you know, having the honor to meet. I am a lifelong Cambridge resident. I've actually, Susan, I went to school with her kids, and a lot of folks, like I see Aisha in the space, Ashley, there are so many folks here that I consider in my community. And so I've grown up here my whole life, and grew up in public housing, grew up in North Cambridge, and now, you know, living in the Port. And I consider myself a transformative justice organizer. And so that is really thinking about the work that we're doing in the root. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about what transformative justice is, but it's really thinking about how are we living these values that I think, you know, so many of the other panelists already talked about, of community, of autonomy, of self-determination, and of really thinking about what does care and what does safety actually mean, in contrast to how we already understand it in our current system and in our current communities. And this is kind of coming from the org that I am representing today, which is the Black Response. And we are a group of young Cambridge residents, young Black and Brown Cambridge residents who are really, we came together really concerned actually with how the city was talking actually about the movement for Black lives and the Black liberation movement. As we were talking about, there are a lot of different sides of Cambridge, right? And so we felt as though many of us came together and said that we're not actually representing a lot of the needs of people, and people are actually trying to represent entire communities. And that will always fall through, and that's never actually going to create change when people have really individual experiences that need to be brought to the table to be addressed. And so the Black Response, we kind of formed off of that and really wanted to think about how are we implementing transformative practices and policies, not only just into our city systems, but really into our community. How are we really transforming, changing, and grabbing at some of the harms, violence, and abuse in our communities from the root? And so, you know, the ways that, you know, one of the ways that we're doing this with young folks has been through this Youth Heart cohort. And so for folks who don't know, the Heart program is a collaboratively based design program, which the Black Response was part of, as well as over 30 different organizations within Cambridge and around the country who have worked with us to build a program that would be an alternative to the current public safety models that we have in our community. And so HEART stands for the Holistic Emergency Alternative Response Team. And really it's thinking about what are some of the root causes of harm in our community, of houselessness, of, again, disability justice, of neurodivergence, of youth policing. How are we looking at these issues and actually creating deep-rooted systemic ways to actually be able to address these things and not just Band-Aid kind of cover-up issues. And so the HEART program was kind of created off of this basis. And so we are still in process of really trying to implement this program into the community. But we really wanted to create some pilot programs, right? Because we understood that, again, we're not just putting a program out to the community. We've worked with community members to create this, but we also want to get feedback on the different parts of the program and how they'll work in community and how they'll be how they'll be implemented. We wanted to get feedback from folks. We wanted to get folks engaged. And specifically, we wanted this to be a program that will hire people in the community. And so we said, how do we do that? And it's by, again, giving folks the tools to actually be able to address these things. And our communities, quite honestly, address these things far more than the police do, or then again, these punishment systems actually do. Our communities are actually the ones that take care of each other. And so we said, how are we actually working to cultivate a lot more of that care internally? And so the Youth Heart cohort, which is through the Mayor's Youth Program this summer, which is really exciting, is really a youth agency, a kind of space for youth to have agency and learning these tools of transformative justice, of peer support, of de-escalation, crisis response, and how they're actually able to implement it into their own youth spaces. Because many of the youth programs in this city are connected to policing in some way, and that's no disrespect to those programs or to the ways that these programs are running. Again, I was also a part of a lot of these programs when I was growing up in Cambridge. And there are also, boundaries that communities, young folks and families might have of working with programs that work with the police or work with, CPS or Department of Youth, Services or Department of Family Services. And so how are we actually engaging and giving folks like that the same tools and the same ability to build community that we have for all of these other systems, specifically systems that exist in the state and exist in the city. And so that's kind of a little bit more on the program. We're really excited because there have been a couple of community centers that have already agreed to allowing us to be able to use the program instead of calling the police for young folks when they're in altercations this summer. So young folks will actually have the agency to support one another through conflict, to support one another through needs, and support one another through connecting through services, while also learning from people in the city who do this work and people around the country who have been doing this work for decades of alternative responses. And so, yeah, this is a really great program that we are developing. And this is, again, a collaborative program. So we have been, the young folks who have been really interested in being a part of the program, we're building the curriculum with them. We're building out the trainings and all of these things with them as well. And so this is kind of, the idea of the HEART program and the Youth HEART cohort is really giving our communities a way to actually be able to address the needs and issues that we have in our own hands and with our own power. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's show love to Queen Cheyenne, please. Thank you, Queen Cheyenne. Thank you. Thank you. I had a follow-up question, but you actually just kind of tackled it at the end, right? And I think when I'm hearing you talk, a lot of people might be more familiar with the restorative justice approach, but this is a different approach, right? And we're not discrediting anything else, but it's a different way to go about things, to look at things. And I'm recognizing the importance of it starts from a place of self, right? And then this is an extend into the community, right? And then us like being accountable for ourselves and each other and love to, and that's so important. So thank you, Queen Cheyenne, for sharing what we're gonna actually do, because I wanna be mindful of time. And I'm recognizing time. Queen Cheyenne and the other panelists, we're gonna actually have breakout groups for about 10, 12 minutes, being mindful of time. And what we want is, we want the community to be able to decide, this is power of choice again. Once again, we don't get that all the time, right? You can figure out what breakout group do you wanna go to. And in these breakout groups, this is more time for us to maybe ask more direct questions, maybe share some best practices and start the conversation about possible networking and collaboration opportunities. All right. I want to be mindful. We don't have a lot of time in these breakout groups, but we want to just give you guys a little bit more time to dive a little bit deeper in dialogue in the respective individuals and movements that you decide to. All right. So, Susan, are we good?
Thank you, Terrell. Terrell,
Okay.
this is Barbara. So our tech people are going to, if you look at the bottom of your screen where breakout rooms, you'll see the names of each of our panelists, and you'll be able to click on the breakout room that you want to go into. And we'll give you a 2-minute warning when those breakout rooms are going to close, and then we'll come back for closing. So those breakout rooms should be surfacing now. Choose the space that you want to go into, and you'll go right to that breakout space. If you have issues, our tech people will help you. Thanks, Terrell. The panel discussion was fabulous.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank the panelists. Thank the community. Oh, what a hater. All right, so right, so Mark had a great question for Donna and Michael, but we didn't have enough time to actually finish. Show of hands if you felt like I wish I had more time with my breakout groups, because maybe this is something that we need to consider. How do we create another space? All right, cool. So thank you all. I want to be mindful of time because we do have some things that are coming up. For our panelists, truly appreciate you. Thank you for the work that you were doing. I can say on behalf, I'm sure, of the community, yes, I think now we can take off mute and show love. Word, we can do that.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. I know we didn't get to the question I wanted the panelists to ask the community, but we wanted them to be able to ask, like, what's something that our out of school time community can help or join them as far as their efforts in uplifting the Black and brown youth family. Answer right now, but please give some thought to that. You've heard the amazing work that's being done. How are there ways that we can potentially work together, collaborate to make these efforts even expand more? Because it's important. I remember yesterday before we was about to break out, Dr. Janet Moses, she dropped some jewels, and I was reflecting on it all night on the importance of, and I don't want to, I'm going to paraphrase what she was getting to, but it was basically like, you know, we are doing some amazing things individually, but it's going to take the efforts of all of us to be able to combat this oppression, things that have been going on for so many years before we've actually been here, right? So we need the efforts of all of us, right, to be able to uplift and prioritize racial equity in our city. So thank y'all, thank you, panelists, thank you, community. Please stay around, I know DJ Bruce about to hold us down with a quick little break. And then after, we got a keynote speaker, Professor McDowell. He's posing a real question. You know, are we implicating the exclusion of those we serve, right? So we're gonna dive a little deeper and start talking about what's the real action plans we can do as a community to move forward. All right, so thank you. I appreciate you all. Take care of yourselves. We'll be back. Barbara, when are we coming back?
Thank you, Terrell. You were a fabulous moderator. Let's give it up for Terrell. Yeah. Thank you so much. So we're going to take a 15-minute break. DJ SolJah is going to entertain us, make us feel good, get up and dance and move, shake it all out. And then we'll be back at 11:15 with moderator Kari Milner of the Agenda and Professor Caesar McDowell, who's already in the room. He's ready to go. So see you at 11:15. Let's vibe.